Guys who got told no during a failed marriage proposal, what happened afterwards? Not my story, but told from our jeweler when we were buying our wedding bands. So a guy comes in to buy an engagement ring. The jeweler sits down with him to talk about design, cost, and what have you. Our jeweler always asks people about how they are going to propose. She likes to share in the excitement. The guy brags about how he is going to propose to his GF at a ball game. On the big screen in front of the entire stadium while his favorite team plays. As the guy is speaking, our jeweler notices that everything is centered around the guy. From the ring, to the proposal. No mention of what his GF likes. Our jeweler gets a bad feeling, but she sells him the ring. Not long after, the guy comes back in with the ring. The GF said no, which really didn't surprise the jeweler. I realized 10 seconds later that she actually said, "You know I will." And she's just really quiet when she talks. My mom's boyfriend proposed to her 3 months into dating. She was 40, had one disastrous marriage and subsequent divorce under her belt by that time, and felt like it was too soon in the relationship to be talking marriage. He accepted her no, but said he wouldn't ask again, and he hasn't. They've been together 25 plus years now and never married. I can tell you what happens when you propose and she isn't feeling it but says yes anyway because of social pressure. Very awkward, sad time until you finally have the talk you should have had before proposing. She told me no, but wait a while and ask again and I think it will be yes. We're still married. I used to date a guy who was in a band that had a bit of a cult following. They agreed to never let someone propose from stage again after an incident where a dude proposed on stage, and she said yes. But everyone could tell it was a no. He showed up at a show a few months later single. They said it was a big vibe killer for the show. You just have to hug her and high-five her several times over, and ask again. Works like charm in The Sims. This happened live on the Today Show many years ago during the segment where the anchors/hosts chit-chat with people outside on the plaza. Guy proposed, girl said no. If I remember correctly, she said they had been dating only 2 weeks. It was extremely awkward for poor Al Roker. Proposed to her at 22. She said no. We stayed friendly while life took us on different paths. About 25 years later, we got married. I said yes, but then the next day have the ring back cause I got cold feet. Then I realized I was wrong to give it back and thankfully he gave it back to me a week later. Thus was 43 years ago and we're still going strong. She was graduating with her master's, I still had 2 years left for my PhD. I floated the idea privately. She said, if you ask me formally, I will say yes. But if you really love me, give me a year to prove to myself that I can live on my own. I said no problem. She moved to her job, down in New Jersey. Next I heard of her, she was engaged to another guy I knew. I took that as another bullet dodged, another life lesson learned. Not the guy here, but the naysayer. He had just finished a 1,000-mile solo cycling tour and I met him at the finish. I was so caught up in his achievement that I did not see the proposal coming and I was shocked. So I told him right there, I love you, but I can't give you an answer right now. Of course there were tears and we both called family members and then continued on our planned holiday. We had such a good time on our holidays and were able to enjoy each other's company like normal. So I figured that if we can handle this bump in the road this well, we are a great team, and at the end of the holiday I told him I would love to marry him. That was 7 years ago, and I haven't regretted my decision for a second. I simply needed time to process a life-changing choice and my partner was mature enough to understand this. Asked this girl to marry me and she said no because I didn't ask her right. I don't know exactly why, but it didn't bother me much. We had a strange history and it just seemed like par for the course. About a year later, I met someone else and we will be celebrating 31 years in a few weeks. Sometimes things do work out for the best. HS sweethearts, off and on again through college and after. 9 years in total. Planned a trip and as we were leaving, she said, I hope you aren't going to ask me to marry you." Ring stayed in the bag and tried to enjoy the awkward trip. I was pretty devastated. She got married to someone about 6 months after that, I know. A few years later I met someone with whom I understood what a relationship should be. I traded in the original ring and have been married for 19 years now. Both she and my 2 kids are amazing, and I'm super thankful things worked out how they did. My first wife said no at first, later she asked me, much to my surprise. We were married 32 years until she fulfilled her vows. Edited for clarification. Was with a girl for a couple years. I started talking about getting married. She was up for it but kinda distant about it. I take her out ring shopping and she breaks down. Tells me she can't marry me. I was really confused. I thought things were going great. Turns out I was just the guy taking care of her until her ex gets out of prison. I paid for her schooling, helped her get off drugs. We were looking at houses. I thought we were making a life together. She left me not long after that. He got out of prison a few months later. She went back to stripping. I ran into them a few times. I guess she's happy. Guys, if you're reading this thread and want one strong takeaway from it, always talk to your significant other and make sure they want to marry you before proposing. I know the movies from the old days make it seem like it should be a surprise, but it really shouldn't be. It should be something you've been talking about for a while, and it should come after you have had multiple talks about your future together. No one likes to have to devastate someone, and a lot of hurt feelings can be avoided by communication. Let the moment that you propose be a surprise, but the fact that you would propose at all be pre-established. She said if I could get her to say yes to a ring pop, we could have the ceremony at the Renaissance Festival. She said no, and then I whipped out the real ring. My wife told me no twice before saying yes. The first time she said, "You're drunk," I was, point taken. The second time she replied, "I love you and like dating you, but you're not emotionally mature enough to marry." Indeed. I cut back my drinking and worked on my emotional maturity/mental health. We've been married over 20 years now. My friend proposed once and she said no. It was very early in their relationship. She said she only feels comfortable marrying him if he bought a house first. 10 years later he's afraid to ask her again, because she has a standard of how she wants to be proposed, with a fireworks show, a tropical beach area with all her friends watching, and a big diamond-size ring like the videos she's seen on TikTok, but now all of her friends are getting married around her, so she now wants him to propose again. It's a weird waiting game for the both of them. Technically she said yes. But then we went to surprise her family with the good news and her parents immediately told us to break it off. She was not going to spend her entire remaining life with a black man. We just broke up and moved on. I found a way better girl from a non-racist family. We're married with 3 kids now and doing great. Ex is a drug addict in Kentucky, but at least she's married to a white man. Living paycheck to paycheck. I needed 2 additional tries to get her to say yes. One near the Eiffel Tower. It was never a hard no, more a not yet. We were both still students, she was unclear if she would stay there or go to the other side of the country or wherever. In 6 weeks we have our 10-year anniversary. I am a woman, but I spent a year asking my boyfriend to marry me on a regular basis. I'd say, "Wanna get married?" And he'd say yes, and I'd say, "Can I tell my parents?" And he'd say no. A straight-up year. Until finally we went on a little trip a couple hours from our apartment and he whipped out the letters he'd exchanged with my parents about wanting to propose. Just had our 6th anniversary. My dad proposed to my mom 3 times. She laughed each time and took the ring, all 3 of them. They have been living miserably together ever since. I'm 31 now. They built a separate living room and avoid each other. My dad says he regrets it to this day. My dad is a wonderful man, and every time I asked why he stayed with that wretched woman he would say, "Because she's your mother." He never goes into any more detail. If she says no, just move on. I said no because he was an addict. I was not, but I was young and dumb. He showed me by running out and marrying an Asian woman with 2 kids 6 months later. She used him for a green card and he adopted her kids, so now he has to pay her child support. I learned this because his mom came by my parents' home to catch up. My mom said it was beyond awkward. I broke up with this fool when I was 17 and she was trying to reconnect us. Bruh, I'm 34, happily married, and we have 4 kids. Kick rocks. If a girl says no to a proposal, the guy should have known better than to ask. A good friend of mine, who was only 19 at the time, heard from her parents that her boyfriend of about 4 months was going to propose at midnight on New Year's in front of her entire family. She was terrified and didn't want to say yes, but her parents were super insanely strict and threatened to throw her out of the house if she didn't say yes. I called her, I was drunk, at 11:58 and kept her on the phone for about 10 minutes telling her bad jokes and getting every single person at the party I was at to say HNY to her. Ruined the moment for the guy, and he never asked. Oops, I ruined New Year's Eve 1991 for Kevin, rolling on the floor laughing, oh, we've been married for 28 years now. I'm not a man, by F, but proposed to my GF at the time. TBF, there were a lot of complicating factors in our relationship, but regardless I was head over heels in love with her and wanted to marry her. She said no. Our relationship continued for about a year, me hoping that she would come around to wanting to marry me. We had, too many conversations about the seriousness of our relationship, and each time she would say, why can't you just get over it? Meaning me asking her to marry me. I eventually ended it when I finally realized that she just didn't love me the way I did her and that I deserved better. Unfortunately, that took longer than it should have to realize, but I'm one that if things end between us, then it's fully over, and I didn't want to do it prematurely. Everything worked out well though. My now husband asked me to marry him, and we've been happy almost 10 years now. It was rough. We cried together in the car on the way home. She loved me, but she wasn't ready. We talked about it in the following days. It felt like a setback, but, looking back, it was actually a springboard to a deeper level of communication. 2 years later she gave an enthusiastic yes, and now we have a beautiful baby girl and 6 years of happy marriage. Dated for 3 years. He was, I thought, the love of my life. I locked eyes with him, and as I was about to open my mouth and say, will you marry me, he said, we need to break up. He met someone else. They have been married for 2 years and it turns out I'm into women. We do not speak, but I wish him the best.